Today we're going to be setting up our facade sandwich panels as seen here. Let's turn off our section block to see the final effect that we're going to get. This session is live, and hopefully if anyone is there, they'll just follow along in order to achieve this effect as quickly as possible. So, depending on your construction, you can build the windows directly into your assemblies, and Layla does want us to do this, so it's best that we do that, and I'll show you how to do that throughout the video. You can see here, by the end, we have the door and the windows directly built in to our shop drawing assemblies. The wire boxes, the windows, everything is part of the assembly, and I will post all the families and the Dynamo scripts when I post the recording. So for now we're actually just going to start again like we did with the structural model. We're going to make a new project. We're going to use the architectural template. We're going to start from scratch just to reiterate the importance of copy monitor. So the first thing we do after making a new project is we go to collaborate. We collaborate in the cloud. First we save it, and I'll call this sandwich panel recording. Great. And we'll save this to my desktop for now. And I only need one copy of this. Save that. Once that is uploaded to the cloud, we're going to link in the architectural, and we're going to take the grids, and we're going to take the levels. And then what we're going to do is just copy over the sandwich panels from the architectural. However, we're not going to copy monitor due to the fact that we want our windows and our doors. So if you know how to set up a cloud model and copy monitor grids and levels, you can skip this part of the video. So once we've uploaded the model to the cloud, what we're going to do is we'll go back to the project browser, right? And we'll insert a Revit link, and we're going to link in our architectural in order to receive the grids as well as the levels. So you're going to find your architectural model, you're going to open it, and we're just going to take the grids and the levels. We're not going to copy monitor the walls due to the fact that we want the windows and doors. We loaded it in. We can manage a couple of the links. Or not the links, but the work sets and the links. So I don't want any of my site. And I don't really need my roof either. Nor do I need load-bearing walls. We just want the grids, just so it's easier to select. This allows us to speed up the computer as well by controlling what we're seeing. The goal is to work as fast as possible with as little work. Beautiful. Well, that is a lot of linked levels. Doesn't quite matter. So we're going to go collaborate, copy monitor, select the link, we're going to select the architectural. Then we're going to copy multiple, and we're going to select pretty much everything. Right? And we're going to filter, right? Just the levels. Done. And finish. Here. Great. And then finish here. We don't have to finish it just yet because we can still use this same copy monitor tool to copy now the grids. So we're going to copy these. Right, and the same thing, we're going to filter out just the grids. Done. And then we're going to finish here. Now we have the grids and the levels. And now that we have everything we want from the model, we're going to finish the copy monitor. And that was it. That's all we needed from here. And, of course, most importantly, you go to the coordinates, you acquire coordinates from this model. Now, when we load them back in between each other, they're in the same place. So, next step, we're going to go to our architectural model, we're going to open and unload from this, and we're going to collect all our walls. See, we have grids, we have levels in our model, and so here's our architectural model. We do not need it in realistic view. So there's multiple ways that we can drag these walls into our facade model, and the best way that I've found is to actually copy paste in place. This removes the ability to copy monitor. However, copy monitor doesn't allow you to copy and paste the windows over. And there's this, depending on your window family, there's this byproduct where the openings will actually be larger than the windows themselves. So for coordination purposes, I've decided to actually use a different approach entirely, which is to simply copy.
You need to synchronize on the same because of
Okay, so we're going to select all the walls, and we're going to do this quickly by selecting all because they share type properties. We're going to find one wall. That one has a type. We're going to select two, because these are different types, because one has a fire rating parameter, the other one doesn't. But the cool trick is that if you select two different types and then press SA, select all, you will select all the walls of all the types. You can use this for any type of family. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this to clipboard, okay, and we're done. We're going to go back to our 3D model. This is going to become our thing. Let's delete the original levels because we don't want this to interfere with our proper levels. Let's make sure. Let's go to views, and now let's create some view plans from the levels we have. And we know that the walls are going to go on the ground floor, the first floor, second floor, third floor. Now we have views set with our grids there. Let's just quickly move our elevation, so when we load in the walls, we'll be able to have some working views. So now what we're going to do, go back and we'll paste one more time. Actually, I'm going to cut that part out. So we're going to paste, and then we're going to align to selected levels, and we're just going to paste it from the ground floor since all floors are copied together. In this case we were stacking walls on walls. There we go. So now in our model, because we use the copy paste method, we don't only get the walls, we also get our windows and doors. Before we begin splitting, we can see there's a couple inconsistencies in our groups, and before splitting that, it's a good time to fix these. There we go. We're going to align these so we can make interesting panels, corner panels here, for example, and here. So, what's the next step? The next step is actually to select all of these plus, remember, all of these, right? And we're going to actually want to just change this to the same type, because in this model it's purely for modeling purposes and drawing purposes. We do not need panels. The next step is to edit this type and duplicate it, because the sandwich panel configuration will not work with 4 layers, and at the moment we have 4. We have the inner leaf, we have the insulation, we have the outer leaf, and we have the brick slips. So in order to make this script run for us, we'll duplicate this temporarily, and we'll just write this type without brick. And later on, once we've created all our splits, then we're going to change the type back to the one with brick, and it'll work. Perfect. So now at the moment we only have the 3 leaves. In the old method, I'm going to teach you 2 methods to split. You can either split it manually using division lines, or you can use the old method which we showed in the last episode about the internal load-bearing walls, where you allow the configuration to calculate it for you. In this method I'm going to do it manually, since we want to have control over where the splits occur. So we're not even going to load in the precast tools yet into this model. We're going to select all the walls, and we're simply going to create parts. Okay, now we have parts visible, and you can see that by being able to see the lines. The next tip I'm going to show you is, if you want to create these, if you want to use these corner pieces as your individual, what you can do is you can merge the parts. So now this becomes one part. So when it delivers on site from your manufacturer, you're going to get a sandwich panel that has this corner. We're going to do that with these parts too. And we're going to do this with the outer leaf. Right, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go step back. What you do is you select on the part, right? You select on the other part, the 2 parts you want to merge. And then you find this in the settings for parts. Merge parts. See that? You merge them, and now they are merged. If you want to edit them later on, you just press on the part, edit the merged, and just like the group editor, you can add and remove parts from each other. You can only join parts that may contain the same material though, so keep that in mind as a limitation. Okay, so now remember we created our floor plan views. I'm going to open each of these, in order. So now we're looking at the first floor, the ground floor, the second floor, and the third floor. So now we can control each of these. In each of these we're going to want to show the parts. There we go. So we can do the same for these. So we want these corners. You can work on that from the ground floor. We'll apply the parts.
But it's connected.
I'm still here, Angela. So yes, set up which parts you want to be connected to each other. Once you've done that, we're going to go to an elevation view, right? And we're going to start planning our splits. So like I said, unlike before where we allowed the configuration to create the splits for us, we're going to create the splits ourselves by pressing RP for reference plane. And we're going to find points where we can split the wall without interfering with the openings too much. That looks pretty good. Let's dimension this from the edge to here. That's about 7.6 meters, so that fits within our limit. Then what you're going to do, very important, is you're going to label this first, the first one. You're going to do architectural facade, for example, whatever coding method, 1. Because the reason you do this is because when you copy this over to the next split location, which let's say is here, another 7.5 meters, you can see that the coding copies over, just like the grids do when you copy grids. Then we're going to find the last split. We're going to copy this again, and we're going to add it here. However, we've created a strategy for the thing, for the panels, that each unit has a pattern, correct? So we're going to have one here, one here. We want to have one more split here because then we want to redo the pattern again. So there's going to be one placed on top of this grid. And then we can copy the pattern. What you can do now is you can select all three things. If you have a repeating pattern, you can copy all three of them from grid to grid, and this is every 5 grids, so from 26 to 22, every 4. That means to 18, to 14, to 10, to 6. And this, by all means, should have copied them down perfectly. And even though you copied all 3, you can see that the naming standard stuck. We don't want to cut this corner, however, so number 18 can be deleted. In my case, you have to think up your own strategy where you're going to be splitting your panels. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a section view, right? We're going to go to view, and we're going to create a section view at the edge of one of these. We're going to flip it. Right, and we're going to extend this to the end here. So now, in this view, once we show parts in the view template, we should really be making a view template for this. We can select all the parts. Right? I will say one thing, however. Once you create the splits, the parts split too. So at the moment, if you want, you can select all of these parts. I'm going to use PyRevit, the pick tool, so I won't be able to select anything but parts. I'm going to add shape handles. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in a model so I can see how the floors will interact with this. So I'm going to pause and Okay, so I just loaded in my structural model that has our hollow cores. Alright, so what we're going to want to do for this is we're going to hide the walls in the structural model. So using VG, we're going to control the Revit link views by setting this to custom. And we're going to, in reality you should have the walls in one and .dex on another. So we're going to do the control, we're going to deselect everything, and we're just going to find parts. So we only want to see the hollow cores that we created earlier. Okay, now we won't be seeing anything except our walls and the parts that we've created in our structural model that I showed you earlier. So why did we do this? Is because before we split them vertically, we can split them horizontally, or we can start controlling the settings already. So for example, we know this, we want to have 40 mils between the hollow cores and this in order to fill it with grout. So we're going to drag this to 40. And you can start controlling the horizontal parameters. The insulation, I can imagine, will go down perhaps to the same level, and we'll fill this in with some other insulation. And we're going to drag, perhaps the outer leaf can go a little lower. So we'll set that. And now we're controlling these shape handles of the entire wall. We know that, for example, here, the inner leaf will sit here, and the insulation might go a little bit above that. And then we'll continue controlling these. So you can, depending on your manufacturers, you can set up how your model will, how your shape handles will sit. So you can see we have a small gap between the hollow core and here, but that's fine because this will be filled in. So we're going to, again, you can use dimensions on the shape handle reference and the hollow core, and you can control that to there. So we have 40 mils. This way, by working in 3D, we will have everything done for us. So the insulation can go up to the level perhaps, and this insulation can go to the same as here, and we'll fill this in, the grout, and then we'll fill this in with insulation, and the inner leaf can come down to here. And then later on we'll control the bricks as well. So we'll do that all the way up until we have all our shape handle settings. And once we have that done, we can go to our 3D, we can go to our section view, which we're already in. Right? And the reason we're in the section view is because we want to control, we want to select all the inner leaves, because the inner leaf is going to have the same split all the way up. So we're going to select this part. So now we're selecting just the inner leaves. And if we know we're going to press it again and again and again, I want to show you this technique of saving selections. So we're going to select this, and we're going to call this inner leaf. Alright? Now what we're going to do is we're going to divide the parts, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to select on the parts, divide parts. Right? We're going to work from a floor plan view. So we're going to select level first floor. Okay. Right. Now we're selecting all those parts. What we're going to do is, instead of editing sketch, instead of drawing parts just like this, we're going to do intersecting references. And now you have options. If you want to cut horizontally, you can cut by levels, you can cut by grids, the existing grids. Let's say you set up your grids to already line up your cuts, you can use that. Our strategy doesn't go that far back. or we can use the reference planes we used. And the reason I do the reference planes with the coding is because we have this option to check all. So the reason we use the reference planes is because now we can just use this option, check all, right? We can apply that. Now that's cut. We're not seeing this because in this view we don't have parts visible, but the most important thing now is after you've picked which lines you want to cut by, you go here. You see this? That's the gap. You would use the gap as your way of displaying tolerances. And now you use the cut type you want. There it comes default with a notch. And then you change this to mirrored. That means the profiles are looking mirrored from each other. So you have a notch on either side of the part. And then you just press OK. There we go. So now in the view, let's go from original to parts. You can see wherever the reference line is placed, now we have a notch. We're going to do the same. The reason we didn't do all three parts at the same time is because for every cut you make, you can only choose one profile. So if you cut this one and this one at the same time, you would have a profile here, and you would have a profile here. And you don't want three tapered notches. For example, the insulation is just a straight cut. So what we have to do is go back to the section view, right, and do the same thing. We're gonna select this part. We're gonna select this part. Select. Oh, I messed up. We're gonna select just the insulation. This one, right? We're going to select the ones we want. We're going to divide parts. We're going to go to the floor plan view again, first floor. Right? Now we're going to do the same thing again. Instead of edit sketch, we're going to intersecting lines. We're going to go reference planes, check all, apply. Now we have cuts here. Choose the gap, the tolerance, and now we have a straight line between the insulations. And you can see this now creates its own part. It's no longer connected to these parts like this one is. This is a straight part going all the way down. These are individual parts. Now we're creating our sandwich panels. Next step is continue with the outer leaf. So we're going to select these ones, this one, this one, and this one. And then we're going to divide parts. It's going to ask us to pick a plane. We're going to go to the first floor, press OK. We're going to go to the first floor view, and now we're going to intersecting lines, reference planes, check all of them. So we have cuts going down the same place. Just for educational purposes, I don't know if this is the correct construction. You have to consult your manufacturers for that. We're going to add the 20mm tolerance. This has to be defined by whatever tolerance you think is best. And we're going to use this angled notch to create this very nice, interesting cut. And we're going to complementary, because we want them cut like this. And we're going to press OK. Now we have this very cool notch. So now we have three different types of profiles that are cutting. We have none in the middle, we have the tapered notch here, and we have this one here. Now it's on to making our assemblies. So let's go to a 3D point of view. We're going to go to our 3D perspective and we're going to see how these cuts look. Nice. And this is the Lynx model, and it's matching up with our profiles quite nicely. Let's go to the top view. Let's make sure that I believe I might have missed, unless this is part of the architectural. It looks like on the third floor it didn't create the tapered notch cut. That is a glitch I have not seen before. In all intents and purposes, one cut should share the same profile throughout the whole thing. So, and you can even see when we do the intersecting, we can edit the sketch. We have the tapered notch set here. We're going to apply that. Press OK. In the event of this, I would recommend selecting all the parts on the third floor and deleting them and remaking the splits. But for this purposes, to move forward, we're actually going to unload K09 for now, so we can work with our facade elements. Remember, we haven't split these yet. We haven't used the Precast tool. We are creating our own splits. We've done these manually, and we've added our tolerances and our gaps. So you can see from our section view that we've already made space in our elements for our hollow cores. From the 3D view, that's what they would look like coming onto site. But for now, let's get into the assemblies and the split tool. We haven't split these yet, so let's do that really fast. Right. And I'm actually going to do it from a 3D perspective, just to show that you can work from Revit in many angles. So we're going to select very carefully. We are going to select the inner leaf by dragging like this. That one's already split. So we're going to divide the parts. We're going to do intersecting. And this time, let's say we have a grid that works, which I know is grid D. So let's use this instead of making reference planes. Same thing. Now it's create a split throughout the whole thing. Let's hope it goes over all the levels. Tapered notch, 20. And it's important that you set this to mirrored. Now we have our notch. The parts we're not intersecting will not be divided for repetition's sake. You can skip this if you know what you're doing. So divide parts, intersecting references, and in this case we're using grids. In this one we're not having a straight line, we're using this. Okay. And we can even add this part, and then the cut will continue. So in this case we'll use the same cuts. But I only selected the top one, I forgot to select the bottom one. So, like I said earlier, you can edit division, add, and we'll add the ones below. So that's pretty cool. You can do just one, and then you can use add and add things to the division. So there's a lot of different strategies you can use in order to create assemblies and parts. Now that we've created our general shapes how we want them, right? Let's say we've done the work and we've displaced all our horizontal members and our vertical members, we can get into the precast tools finally. So we're just going to load that into this project by pressing configuration. Okay, so now we're working with We're leaving solid walls behind, we're leaving slabs behind, we're purely working with multi-layered walls. Oops. Okay, so now we're back in our configuration. What we're going to do is, like I said, we're done with solid walls, we're done with slabs, we're here now. We're going to work with the parts. The parts, these are the lifting elements. We only have one family. And then the bracings, which, like the solid wall, holds the soldiers. You can control where they are, take a look at these settings, distances, lifting capacities, etc. Segmentation, however, is because we're doing our own splits, we don't want this script to segment anything for us. So we're going to set these to incredibly unrealistic numbers, like 150,000 millimeters, so 150 meters. The min wall height will be 20. The max wall height will be 10,000. And the weight will be something like 200,000 kilos. And we don't want gaps because we've made our own, and the distance to the openings will be something unrealistic like 10. This way we have total control over where things will segment. Then we can go into reinforcement types, and that we'll get into after. And unlike before where we pressed on the wall to split, we're going to use the parts to split. So I'm going to go into a view, right, where I'm going to hide levels and grids, because I want to be able to select things, just parts, as fast as possible. So I'm going to split this element here, and I'm going to hide windows and doors too. Windows, doors. Okay, so now I set myself up a view where I'm just working with parts, and I can make a view filter from this so I can easily jump between the two. Let's see. So now we have our part, we have our assembly made the way we want it. Well, this one's not a good example because it didn't split the top, so instead I'm going to let's find an interesting building for one of our individuals. I like the look of this one. So I'm going to select all the parts here, and I'm going to go to the Precast tool. I'm going to split it, and the walls aren't structural, right? I keep forgetting that. So what you do is you would turn on original, right? You'll select one, just press SA to select all, and we're going to turn all of them into structural. But we have, however, different constructions between these two walls. The facade wall is not bearing, it's self-bearing, while the two edges are bearing. So we're going to select these four, and we're going to turn these to non-bearing. These ones on the edges are holding up hollow cores. They're working as a party wall. So now that we've done that, we can go back to our parts. Right? We'll select an interesting element to split. You can split all of them at the same time. I am not going to do that. I'm going to find this one's quite interesting. However, it might not work because of how the windows are placed, but we'll give it a shot. Precast, split. So, you might be wondering, why do we go through all this effort in splitting, in creating our own segmentations, if we're just going to end up splitting it anyways? We pretty much just do this, the splitting tool, in order to utilize the rest of the tools that the precast system offer, like the automatic reinforcement and the shop drawings and creating assemblies for us. So that worked. So, like I said, now we don't have to go to each part, combine them, and manually create assemblies. By using split, it creates the assembly for us, and it allows us to reinforce our sandwich panel. So we're going to go reinforce, right? We're going to prick double wall. Let's edit the type and see exactly what reinforcement strategy is using. The difference with this as compared to the other one is we have multiple shells. So we have a rebar cage that's going to be placed on the outside leaf. Oh no, the shell here. When you set up your rebar, your automatic rebar, you set it either to the first shell or the second shell, on the outside of the wall or the inside of the wall. So we know that the inner leaf needs to have 2 cages, right? So what you do is you add a rebar cage here, right? And we're going to use this as the outer leaf. So we're going to select this one. We're going to make 2 cages, right? We're going to go first shell. So we have 1 in the first shell, 2 in the first shell, and we're going to set this to the inside. And then the truss is asking us what kind of lifting element we want, and is it attached from where. And this is a generic model, and you can move them after the fact and edit the parameters, but we'll get into that. Then we're going to go to the second shell. We're going to create a rebar cage with a smaller thing. I'm just picking random things. You have to look into your manufacturer's specifications and decide on that yourself. Corner bars, U-bars, L-bars, again, refer to your manufacturer. Now we're reinforcing it. Precast skipped creation of some lattice girders. Okay. I'm so sorry guys, I can't find any logical reason as to why it's not reinforcing automatically for us. It's probably just Revit being a little moody today, but it did give us the lattice girders and the lifting elements, so that's a win still. In the event of this, we could simply do a little area reinforcement ourselves by picking a plane. Here, area reinforcement, what would it look like? Continuing to this, we can see that this is a previous example where I've split, reinforced, and assembled everything, and never have I run into that error before, so hopefully in your case, when you do this and you hit the reinforcement button, this is not going to be an issue for you. If it is, however, it's not the end of the world. You will simply reinforce just one of the items that you want by hand. The rest will still assemble, so continuing the tutorial in hopes that your reinforcement would work. Right, we'll take a couple steps back. Okay, we're gonna continue with actually the main reason why we do this. So
he needs time to rest now and the smoke.
yes, I do. We can select all of these parts at the same time, right? And we can split them. This is going to take a second. Alright, great. So we've split all the elements. Now we have all our assemblies made for us. You can see that here. That's great. The reason we do that is because when we go to our north elevation, we have our layout drawings created for us. So when we go to annotate and assembly, annotate, and we place our assembly tags, right, which will load in now. Insert, load the assembly tag. We can automate our sequencing tags and our type tags. So, assembly tag. Right. And annotate. We tag by category. Instead we'll tag all assemblies. There we go. Now all our assemblies are tagged for us. Like that. That way we can sequence them accordingly. Let's just edit this family really fast. We're going to report something different. We're going to report our type name. So that's going to tell us which are the same type. And then we're going to add the mark, and later we'll fill in the mark parameter to show our sequencing. So we're going to load this into the project and replace the one that exists, override. So now we can see double wall 35, double wall 34, double wall 36, and then double wall 35. So this assembly and this assembly is the same, this assembly and this assembly is the same, and this assembly is a little different. 32, 31, let's see how many types we have in total. So out of, I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe 100, we have 45 different types. Wish the reinforcement worked, it didn't. We'll just move on with our lives, we're not going to spend too much time here. The split here on the top floor didn't work due to the fact that our splits didn't work. So that would need to be corrected. I would, like I said, delete it, split just the top floor again. So, but let's keep moving forward. We have exams coming up. Can't spend too much time on one problem. We'll get as much done as possible. Now that we have these, right, we can start creating views. We are missing one thing though, we're missing the connections. So, I would like to load in my, using prolib, Pico, I want to load in my connections, and the next exciting part is going to be, let's see, wall connectors, PVL connecting loops. We're going to insert the Revit family. Cool. We're going to finally get into we're not going to use the top things since they're not working for us. Here we go. We're going to hide these. We're going to use where we have the notches. So, we're going to finally get into using Dynamo. So let's go to Manage, Dynamo Player. Now we'll work on a small view because we're just pressing the faces. We're going to find my Dynamo script that mounts parts onto sandwich panels. We're going to run the script. We're going to pick the family. So how you use the script, you pick the family type, which is going to be the PVL connections from Pico, which is a very good family. You have to use the updated one I made if you want to use it with the script, but since we're doing some of this work manually, we're going to load in the original family that they use, since it is a good family. So we're gonna find this one. Looks about right. This sets the number of them, so less equals more. So if you want more than 3, then it's something like that. If you want 3, if you want just 2, it's something like that. And then you select the face. You select this. You just run the script.
Oops.
Great. Now we have, you can see we have them mounted like that. Looks pretty good. Then we're going to do the other side. We're going to go to the other side, to this one. we're going to select a new face. We're going to select this one. They're going to set the offset slightly so they don't overlap. Now we have some of them there. And now we're going to do it to the other side of this panel. We're going to select the face. We're going to move the offset down to 3 again, run. Okay. Now we have wire boxes on either side. The offsets are a little high. You can set them down slightly to be just one. Okay. And if you don't like how it's placed, you just go back one. Now they're not there anymore. We're going to select the face. You don't run the script. There we go, now they're higher up. However, 5 I believe is a little much, so if less equals more, we're going to change this to 3. Okay, we're going to go back one. We still have the same selected. Now we just have 3. Great, so we can do that. Depending on the scope of how much you want to complete in the model, you can finish there. Now we can go to Precast, Shop Drawings, and create our sheets and our drawing views for this specific element. Great.
Okay, good, thanks.
So now we have our things placed, our 3D view, our rebar. The problem at the moment is this is just the cut in the concrete. But since we're getting these installed, delivered to site with them, what we have to do is go back to our 3D view, which would be here, and we have to press mounting parts. This will automatically add any sort of mounting parts or generic models that are placed into them onto the sheet. And we will go back to the sheet. Now we can see, that's the family. There we go. That was the other one. There we go. Now the wire boxes are built into our wall. This is upside down, that one's there. This view isn't showing any generic models. This one is in a wire box form. See? Then it's done. We have everything tagged. We have everything mounted, placed. We can run we'll try the reinforcement tab one last time. Precast, reinforce. The rebar worked this time. Look at that. Finally. So, great. Now we can go back to that sheet view. This one. Now we have rebar placed, we have the lattice girders placed, we have 2 rebars. So, in an hour we have our entire layout drawings done. We have our reinforcements done on one of them, and we have our models placed and tagged. We just have to sequence them with the next Dynamo script I will show you on Monday. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope this helps. Okay, I just forgot to finish the finishing touches, so we're just going to add the bricks back and then we're done for good. So, find our 3D view. This is our completely working assembly. Looks pretty good. Let's first, remember we added the type with the bricks and without the bricks. So now when we go to the view, to the original, we select all of these, right? And we can change them from brick to without brick to brick. So, we've loaded the brick type in. We've shown parts. We're going to hide this one. You can see now here that the assembly still exists, and now we have bricks. The only problem is now the brick part isn't split. So again, we have to just divide the part, intersecting, references, all, apply, done. Now our bricks have their own shape handles. Then we can add a little, remember there's going to be a little gap between each one. We can set these up nice. This is where you're going to be placing bricks by hands for your finishes. Right, great, that's done. And then we're going to VG windows, doors. We're going to bring the windows and the doors back. And then we're going to edit the assembly. We're going to edit this assembly. We're going to add here, there, and here. So now the doors and the bricks are built into it. And now when we go back to our sheet, I keep pressing on the wrong one. Assembly number 46. We have the door. And we have even the hatching, the things, everything is built into it. So, now it's really done. Thanks for watching.